on this week's Shoot the Messenger. From Heart of Africa to Good People, Great Country. Is it really possible to rebrand Nigeria? Hello, I'm Henry Bonsu and welcome to this week's Shoot the Messenger, an hour of passionate debate about key issues affecting Africans at home and abroad. We're live from our studios in London and we'd like you to have your say. We'll show you how later on. This week we're examining Africa's most populous nation, a land as rich in oil as it is in people, but hampered by a terrible image abroad for corruption, violence and bad governance. Now, 10 years after returning to civilian rule, Nigeria is taking a good hard look at itself. And not for the first time. From 2003 onwards, President Obasanjo's regime spent millions of dollars on the Nigeria Heart of Africa campaign. Last month, the Information Minister, Dora Akinyi, launched a new one, Nigeria, Good People, Great Nation. We'll be examining it with our special guests, two of whom are Nigerian. They are Alice Ukoko from the campaign group Women of Africa, and Alistair Soyedi from Rebranding Nigeria and, of course, Ben Television, and Ayo Johnson, an African Affairs analyst who's from Sierra Leone. But first, let's take a look at the people. Something like 150 million strong and usually very, very proud of their identity. Why is this? I've been asking Femi Okotubo, a prominent Nigerian magazine publisher here in London.
Nigeria is a country which has a lot of resources. We're very proud of the country. In spite of all odds, yes, things could have been a lot better, but we're still proud of our achievements to date. As far as I'm concerned, that country is great. You're talking about, the world's most populous black nation. A country that can rank very heavily and highly among other nations of the world. You're talking about a country, a people who, in whatever field of endeavor it is, rank among the highest in any part of the world. We've got to be proud of ourselves.
And still, you mention the great resources, and we think of the Niger Delta. People talk about the Ogoni land, Ken Sarawiwa, and of course, the massive repression, the crackdown that the military has imposed on so-called militants and the people in that area, lots of people being killed. Even though Nigerians have a lot to be proud of, isn't there also today in 2009 a lot for Nigerians to be ashamed of?
There definitely is. Like any country in the world, every country has its own bad eggs or its bad sides, just as Nigeria does. Now, the situation in the Niger Delta is very unfortunate. We're hoping that things would change. But I think one area that has not really been emphasized so much is the fact that there is a lot of money that has been given to even governments in those parts of the country, which has not necessarily been, trickled down to those on the street. Because, when you hear the kinds of money, I don't have the figures with me now, but when you hear the kind of money that has actually been, given to governments in those areas, and when you compare that to the development that has actually happened in there, it's quite unfortunate that money has ended up in private pockets. So there is an issue in that respect. Again, I believe that companies like Shell and all these oil companies need to be doing a lot more in terms of putting back into the community. This is corporate social responsibility that happens in most other parts of the world. So why is Nigeria different? But like I said, in spite of all odds, in spite of the Niger Delta area, we can only but work towards making sure that things get better in that part of the country, like in every other part of the country, and hope that we will get to the perfect situation one day. The truth is, we've got our own growing democracy. In fact, I would be tempted to say that things are a lot worse maybe among our parliamentarians in terms of expenses and so on. You know, and even when you hear some of the stories that have emerged from the UK in terms of someone claiming 68p for glue and all that, I'm sure the parliamentarians back in Nigeria will be laughing at what are these people on about when, you know, we get so much for our furniture allowance and all whatnot. But I think the reality is, you know, it's just a matter of time. You know, eventually we will get to a situation where there will be better discipline, and our people would be, you know, would be a better people in terms of less corruption and so on, not just in Parliament but in various arms of government and even in the nation as a whole.
We await that day with interest, but the problem is, for the Nigerians, you say 1 to 2 million here, some of them have gone underground, we know this, they're waiting for that change to happen. And that's one of the reasons, I suppose, why so many are here in this country. Isn't it an indictment on Nigeria, even though you say it's this great country with all this oil wealth, so much splendor, so much pride, so much dignity, that nearly 2 million or so are living in this country? That's an indictment, isn't it?
I would disagree with you, Henry. I don't believe it's an indictment. I believe it's a testimony to the great resources that our country is endowed with. If you have, you know, if you have Nigerians in various parts of the world who are not just living in the country, who are not benefit cheats, who are not relying on the system, but who themselves are the very best at what they do in terms of the very best doctors, the very best nurses, the very best you know, managers in various fields of endeavor.
It's even claimed the very best fraudsters. Remember, who gave the world 419?
Trust me, you know, in fact, it's something I've usually said, that Nigerians are extremely good at what they do. Whether it's in terms of the positive, Nigerians are really good at it. Whether it's even in terms of the negatives, quite unfortunately, our people have, you know, they do very well at what they do. But what I think I must emphasize on, and this is extremely important, every country has its own bad eggs, and it's extremely, you know, unfair for Nigeria to be painted as a country of fraudsters just because you have less than, not even up to 0.01% of people who have committed one fraud or the other. You know, you hear stories that there are universities in Nigeria where you can actually go and study fraud. No such things exist. You know, and I think that is the greatest level of ignorance on part of these Western journalists. The reality is Nigeria is a very good country. We've got people who, you know, who are really endowed, who are blessed, and who are contributing not just to the development of Nigeria itself, but to the world as a global village.
Femi Okotubo, a very passionate publisher of the Trumpet newspaper in London. Well, let's hear from our guest. Alice Ukoko, first of all, how proud are you to be a Nigerian? As proud as Femi?
Well, the truth is that Nigeria as a country is great. There is no doubt about it. The people, Nigerians worldwide, are making huge contribution to the development of the world. Yes, we know that.
But are you personally proud to be a Nigerian woman?
Well, I would say proud, but we have issues with Nigeria. And we know that a home, for instance, if the father is not there to run his home, the mother does not take responsibility for running the home, then of course the children take charge, because nature does not like vacuum. What we have in Nigeria today is not that Nigerians should not be proud of Nigeria. The issue is, if you are so proud that you forget that things are not all right, you have forgotten to put your house in order. Nigerians need to wake up and realize that greatness is not gotten on a platter of gold. Nigeria has the potential to be great, but is Nigeria great? That is the issue. We have great people.
What about that then? It's kind of like an empty pride. Yes, 150 million people, Nigerians all over the world, very, very good at what they do, from being doctors, lawyers, scientists, through to fraudsters, but actually it's an empty pride.
No, I won't agree that it's an empty pride. I'm absolutely and totally committed to being a Nigerian. In spite of all the challenges, in spite of everything that is in that country, I have no other choice. I hold a green passport, right? And what we're doing is, without any doubt, agreeing with what Femi has said. Likewise as well, there's no country that doesn't have the same issue. And I don't need to go into what's actually
of it. But let's concentrate on the reasons for this pride. Now, many Nigerians used to tease me when I was growing up as a Ghanaian Mancunian in the north of England. They would say, look at your small, small country. At the time, I think Ghana didn't even number 20 million, and Nigeria was already over 100 million. So they were beating their breasts, making a lot of noise about it, talking constantly about their oil wealth. Is that what people are really proud about, the number of people, the population being so huge and being an OPEC country? Is that what Nigerians are so proud about?
No, I don't think that is the only reason why Nigeria is proud. I think the truth of the matter is, as you rightly mentioned, Nigeria is a country that is blessed with abundant natural resources, and some of them are even yet to be untapped. Now, the fact of the matter is as well, yes, we are, without any doubt, the largest black nation in the world, and for that reason, I presume many other African countries or many other countries that have black people as citizens look forward and onto Nigeria being the leader, being the largest, in trying to change situation, change whatever that we think is we're facing. Many black people, surely enough, they look onto Nigeria to see what are they doing.
Well, that's a question I want to put to Ayo Johnson, because of course you're not a Nigerian, you're from Sierra Leone, another smaller country, but you analyze what Africans say and do about a whole range of things, including maybe their attitude towards Nigeria. Do Sierra Leoneans, do other Africans look to Nigeria for leadership, or do they look to other countries, maybe like Ghana or South Africa, for example?
Well, Nigeria clearly are recognized around the entire Africa as a powerhouse. They've done extremely well. Over the many, many years, they've shown that they can actually command wealth. They've shown that they can export their own people, go to different parts of the world and actually do exceptionally well. They've been tinged with a lot of issues surrounding corruption, but if we're to be mindful, Nigeria have a lot to be proud of. I think the problem is that Nigerians don't even realize how much pride the rest of the African continent have for them.
Really? Is this true?
It is true.
When do you ever hear other Africans say, oh, I'm really proud of Nigeria? When do you hear that?
If you take it onto the sports arena, where Nigeria has dominated football for protracted period of time, Africans across the continent supported Nigeria irrespective. That's just to show that they do respect them. And besides...
But when Cameroon were dominating, then every African supported Cameroon, or when Ghana, you
know? But if we've seen in other areas where we've had wars and instability in other parts of Africa, Nigeria's always been the one to put their hand up to actually go there and try and address some of the problems. So clearly they've been seen as someone that can actually go out and actually do something concrete. But I think one thing that Nigerians should be proud of is the fact that their economy has worked. Lately, it's been growing quite rapidly. Interest rates, for example, have been reduced. Inflation is actually down to about 5% currently, going up slowly to about 11% over the last many months. But they've done exceptionally well from that perspective. They've got new laws that they've brought in to revitalize the economy. They've got procurement bills. They've got investment bills, attracting investment from other parts of the world.
Are you sure you're not a Nigerian in covertly?
No, but I think what I think Nigerians, the rest of Africa should be aware of this, is the fact that there's something called the Paris Club. Yes. The Paris Club are a group of 19 industrialized countries, richest countries in the world, and they actually fund this club. And Nigeria, I'm afraid, was one of many countries that were at their whim, paying huge amount of money repeatedly year on year for debts that they owed. And Nigeria's been one of these countries that actually paid off billions of dollars to cancel that debt. So they're not, I mean, they're very much like a loan shark organization. For Nigeria to have freed itself, it says that they're thinking above and beyond today.
So plenty of reasons to be proud, even arrogant maybe, because the reputation of some Nigerians is to be very, very pompous and arrogant. Would you agree with that, Alice?
Yes, with a reason.
Nigerians are pompous and arrogant.
With a reason. With a reason. You see, you know where you stand. Yeah. So if I'm saying, look, I'm the best here, and I can look behind me and you can see absolutely, without any doubt, honestly, it's the best. Then it's just, I'm not just being pompous because I want to be.
There's a reason
It's a reason, and I'm saying the truth. I'm saying the fact. That I am indeed very proud of being a Nigerian. As rightly mentioned, the economy is much more getting better. Even the World Bank is congratulating how Nigeria has been able to handle the economy, more so the financial market, the banking consolidation. You can talk about this, and you can see indeed Nigeria as a country is one that other African countries are trying to emulate. Even the crime now that we're talking about, the way that the EFCC in Nigeria has been dealing with the crime investigation.
Economic and financial crimes.
Exactly. Yes. All the countries I've seen are actually going to Nigeria to learn how have they been coping.
Although the head of the Economic and Financial Crimes Unit was sacked, was he not? And he's now living in this country.
Well, yes.
Ribadu, is it?
That's true. He was removed, and then another.
Maybe he was doing his job too well.
Well, you can say that as well, but then the fact of the matter as well is a new regime, is a new government, and who have their own plan and they have their own agenda and they want to execute it in the best way they can.
Alice, you're sitting there quite stony-faced. Why is that? I mean, you don't like all this talk of pride and maybe arrogance. I mean, we've established that Nigerians have a lot to be proud of.
Nigerians are proud people. There's no doubt about that. If you ask a non-Nigerian wife, he would tell you that I had a difficult time because my husband treated me as if, excuse me, don't you see that I'm better than you? But when it comes to the issue of Nigeria as we stand, it's one thing to have a potential to be great, and it's another to actually be great. Because people say that if I'm a Nigerian, as I stand here, as I sit down here, and I know that Nigeria has not pulled her weight, well, for once I was proud of the Nollywood.
Yes.
That's
the Nigerian film industry.
That's a Nigerian film industry. I was in Uganda, and people were saying, "Oh, are you a Nigerian?" And I stopped and I thought, hang on, should I say yes or should I say no? Because people have different experience of Nigerians. And then they say, you know, I'm watching the film. And I said, oh yes, I'm a Nigerian. But the truth is, we Nigerians need to wake up and realize that it's one thing to be naturally great and it's another to be great. Yes, we have Nigerians who are outside who are doing great things and building other people's countries, but are we really out there in Nigeria making Nigeria great? We're not.
Well, the big question is why such a great country,
yes,
powerful nation, heart of Africa, you know, good people, great
Nation
country, actually needs to be rebranded, because if that were really true, then you wouldn't need to be rebranded. Everybody would believe it, and you yourselves would believe it. But let's get on to the campaign in just a moment. We want to hear from you in more detail, Alistair, as a member of the committee, exactly what you're going to do. How are you going to achieve this rebrand? But those behind the campaign, like Alistair, perhaps say they're inspired by the rebranding of India and Malaysia, both of which have been transformed, reputationally at least, from basket cases, as some describe them, to powerful tigers. So can it be done with Nigeria? Well, let's have a look in some more detail at those positives. One of the world's largest oil exporters, West Africa's most powerful military and economic power, and a huge English-speaking population, very industrious, willing to work. And in the words of the Lonely Planet Tourist Guide, Nigeria is a country we're coming to love. You shouldn't believe all the scare stories. Lagos is one of the most exuberant cities in Africa, while the port city Calabar makes for an enjoyable stopover for travelers on their way to Cameroon. The guide also says positive things about Nigeria's customs, conservation and national parks. It concludes that Nigeria is a place of extremes. The vast majority of the country is as warm and welcoming to visitors as anywhere else in Africa. There's nowhere else quite like it on the continent. Alistair Shoyede, that must be music to your ears.
Well, I can't sing it better.
Look at how he's smiling so broadly and so happy. But what about the rebranding campaign? Is it going to be more of that kind of stuff from the Lonely Planet Guide or something else? What else are you doing?
You see, actually, the rebranding, from my understanding, is reorienting the people. Yeah, let the people begin to appreciate what we have indoor is even more and better than what we are chasing outside the country. Now, the truth of the matter is, yes, we have problems, and that is the reason why we're dealing with it. Now, the rebranding as well is a window to open the country to the international community. Just rightly as you mentioned on the article, what you read, that is said not by a Nigerian, but by another organization, totally independent. Now, John Simpson, who happened to work for the BBC as well, talked about going to Nigeria, that Lagos is one of his most favorite places that he loved to visit.
Yes.
Now, it shows that for a natural tourist or somebody who wants to visit a country, if really Nigeria offers you all this beautiful thing that you're reading, you want, right?
The question is whether or not it is safe for the average traveler, whether or not the infrastructure is there to get around from A to B, whether or not Nigeria is conserving some of her great treasures. So, for example, when you go to museums in some part of the world, things are kept beautifully, you will see them, no problem whatsoever. In others, they fall into ruin very quickly. You know, getting around the place, you know, banditry, all these things can either attract a tourist or repel a tourist.
That's true.
And from your point of view, are you saying Nigeria is now ready as a tourist destination in Africa?
Without any doubt. Nigeria is absolutely
So where would
ready.
you go then? I mean,
You
I've only been once. I've been to Lagos and Abuja. Where should I go?
You mentioned Calabar, Port Harcourt, Kaduna, Kano, Sokoto, the seat of the Caliphate, right? There are so many places. When you're talking about natural environment, we have places that you have cold water on the other side, and just within 2 feet, you have warm water. You could see in I believe in Osun State. You have the Abeokuta Rock. Yeah? You have places, Oluma Rock and Abeokuta. I just can't sit down here and say, here they are. But if there is a country in Africa that can give you so many variety of tourist destinations, Nigeria, without any doubt, is one of it. In fact, Nigeria is the only answer. I'm not sitting here as promoting Nigeria because I just want to promote Nigeria.
Well, you're part of the committee, so
I am part of the committee. While at the same time, I can say, yes, when you're talking about electricity, for example, or power, yes, we have a problem with the power, right?
Lots of power cuts.
There's
people
a power
having to use their own generators.
Indeed. But then there is a cartel probably that is trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. While at the same time, even where there's no electricity, there's no power, things are still happening. You see, my question that I used to ask myself is, because I'm here in Europe, what happened to my other family members who honestly don't want to travel abroad? They are still saying, no, I'm happy. I'd rather come here, spend 2 weeks, and go back to Nigeria. And again, the country has more than 140 million people still in that country.
Yeah.
And
So they must be staying there for a reason, you're saying?
Exactly.
Well, it could be, I know that some simply are staying there because they've got no other choice. They haven't got the money, they haven't got the means to leave.
Country.
No, 1 second, because you find Nigerians travelling all over the world in huge, huge, huge numbers. And despite the gloss offered to us by Alistair of the committee, the Rebranding Nigeria committee, actually it's a sham. You know, it's all about gloss. It's all about trying to present yourselves as something deep down that you're not. You've been to Nigeria. How have you found it?
Well, it's okay, but I think the rebranding effort is one that's required.
Really?
The question is it at the right time? Is it at the right junction in their progression or industrialization? It's questionable because Nigeria hasn't actually got all the various aspects of their game into play just yet. There are areas where they're failing excessively so. Yeah. For example, the average Nigerian lives no more than 46.
Yes.
Out of 1,000 babies that are born, 100 would die.
Terrible mortality rate, polio in the north especially, the problems between the Muslims and the Christians, still every so often killings.
Excessively so. And if you think about it, the sort of economical progression that we've spoken about earlier, they've not been able to find a formula for actually cascading that down to the grassroots, so that people who live in abject poverty, of which we got at least 60% of the population live below the poverty line, that's $1 a day, have not been able to benefit from any of those credits.
So given all of this, how can you possibly rebrand a nation where so many people are struggling and in pain?
Absolutely. The only argument they would have is if they're trying to attract back those Nigerians who've left in large numbers, who've acquired greater skills, who've got better knowledge, who for 1,000 reasons living in Western nations are struggling themselves because those industries, those economies are not working themselves. Their jobs, even if they've got them, their money is not taking them that much further as they would otherwise wish. They're trying to attract them to come back home. Then I think that's a good formula.
So what should they be doing? I mean, I know that Nigeria now has a presence at the world travel market here in this country, presenting itself as a tourist destination. Nigeria and the Nigerian Stock Exchange sometimes holds conferences here to say, come on, we're open for business. But that isn't enough, is it? What more do you think, as a media man yourself, they should do? Because from your own country's point of view, Sierra Leone, you emerged from a very long civil war, a lot of pain, a lot of people being killed, coups, etc. But you're rebranding yourselves too, aren't you? Yes,
everyone seems to be catching up to this now. Yes. It's very worrying. I'm not sure who the marketing managers are doing all of this, but, but it just goes to show. But I think everyone's trying to put in their best foot forward, and there's nothing wrong with that. The question is can you measure the amount of money that's being used in these campaigns? A lot of advertising, promotion.
Well, in the previous one, under the Obasanjo regime, which started in 2003, it was all about Heart of Africa, the big, powerful, beating heart of Africa. They spent at least $5 million. And many dispute whether or not that was effectively spent. Because the reputation, how many hospitals, etc., roads, and the reputation of the country. If you look at many of the international indices, you know, quality of life, crime, corruption, unfortunately, it's at the wrong end of those tables still, despite these campaigns.
Yes.
Can it work, do you think, this campaign?
I think the problem is with any of these campaigns is that Africa has a terrible stigma. Be it with the sort of news that you like to get out there, be it with the type of information that you like to get. So if you've got a concerted campaign trying to get the right message out, be it promoting yourselves, or be it telling people about yourselves, or be it telling about the resources and the benefits about that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's having the balance between the money spent and the benefit on the ground.
And Alice, what about that then? I mean, when you heard last month, like we all did, that Nigeria was embarking on a new rebranding campaign, this time not hiring the PR guru from Britain, Max Clifford, which he was hired first time round, and unfortunately it didn't really work, and he kind of resigned. He said, they won't listen to me. What do you think about this exercise? Do you feel insulted by it, or do you think actually, you know, the woman in charge of it was really, really strong, getting rid of all the sham drugs, and actually we think this is important? I think, Alice Ukoko, that this is important. People need to stop judging Nigeria so negatively. There's a lot of positives there.
Well, I don't know about lots of positive. I think what's actually happening, if you remember on the 31st of March of this year, there was the drowning of youths at the coast of Libya. And most of those were Africans that were trying, and a lot of them are from actually the Niger Delta. Yeah. And it turned out that one of the victims of that of drowning was a third-year student, law student from Ekpoma in Edo State. And then you begin to ask, and as we speak, there are a lot of people. You could be rebranding on one hand, and on the other hand, because people you're running away, you're not running your country. The country is not being governed. So it's not what people are saying. You could be saying one thing, and the reality is very different from another.
When you say the country is not being governed,
the country is not being governed.
Are you saying Nigeria is ungovernable?
Not ungovernable. The thing about Nigerians is that Nigerians are so easygoing. They are happy. They are smiling when in actual fact they are suffering. In a country where most of the people are looking on to money remittance from abroad, and they are waiting, they are sending their children out into international trafficking so they can go into prostitution to bring money in, then you know that something is terribly wrong. What is wrong is very serious. I mean, if we continue to say, let's rebrand it, let's sweep the whole thing under the carpet so the world can think that we are doing well. The world knows that we are not doing well. If you're a Nigerian, wherever you are in this country, in the whole world, you will realize once you say Nigerian, people say, go like this, because they think, oh, maybe have you come to snatch my earring? Because when you have a situation where the government is more or less sitting down there, we are talking about embezzlement of national resources, we are talking about the military that goes to invade the very region that is producing the oil, then something is terribly wrong. We're looking at a government that people, individuals that are not representing people. They are not representing people. When you talk about the electoral system, there is electoral fraud. I know that because I went to run for governorship of Delta State in 2007, and I had
because you didn't win, you can't say
no, it's not that. I left because my life was in danger. Yeah. I mean, when you have a situation, and I can tell you that on the 6th of February 2006, assassins were sent to me in a hotel in Abuja. When you speak out, they kill you. So when we say we have a civil rule, I was at the forefront of the campaigning to end direct military rule in Nigeria following the annulment of the June 12th election. And I have been able to say that to the very person who annulled it, or the person of General Babangida, retired, and I told him that he was the person who destroyed the hope that Nigeria. You'll find that if you want to rebrand, then first of all, look at the electoral system. When the people who are sitting there rebranding were not elected by the people, and they are not representing the people, then obviously something is terribly wrong. There is no way you can say you are rebranding anything when people are not elected. People are saying, excuse me, who are you representing? You are not representing us because everybody's hungry. If you go into a place, in a country where PhDs are going into armed robbery, then something is wrong. When you go into a country, the Niger Delta is one, where arms were brought in by political talks, and they used unemployed youth to carry guns to gun them into power, and then you now found that having distributed arms. I was there in 2003 when stray bullet was driving people away from going to election, and then you have not been able to elect anybody because you are going to be killed, and then people turn around, you give them and I said to them, you killing sleep in this place. You are distributing arms to people, youth that don't have work. If you go there, illiteracy is huge on the ground. It's okay for me to sit here and say, well, I'm a lawyer now, But the truth is, the Nigerian government did not educate me. My education came from the UK. And that's why you find that a lot of people are running out of the country because they have no hope.
Alice,
so
you
what are
paint
you
a
going
very,
to
very
rebrand?
terrifying picture there. Terrifying, not least for you, Alice, assuredly, because you're supposed to deal with that reality on the ground and somehow present a different image to the world. So let's drill down and look at those negatives, you want to put it that way, or challenges in more detail. I mean, the reports that put Nigeria high on any corruption index and low on most quality of life indices. What about those? After suspension from the Commonwealth in the mid-90s, Nigeria has had to travel a long way, a long painful road since the death of General Sani Abacha paved the way for General Abdulsalami Abubakar's handover to civilian rule in 1999. So how much progress has been made since then? Here's Femi Okutubo again.
Nigeria was a nation that nobody wanted to reckon with. Even for those of us who were abroad, obviously people would look at us, you know, almost with very suspicious eyes. The image of the country wasn't really at its best. Its economy wasn't really at its best. There was a lot of underdevelopment in the country, even in spite of the various vast amount of resources in the country. You know, obviously what we had then was a military regime, which again did not believe in even listening to the voices of the people. And that was the scenario in 1999.
And of course, that was only 4 years on from the execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 other Ogoni leaders. And we've had just recently a resolution in court by Shell Oil to give something like $15 or so million to the family of Saro-Wiwa and the campaign there. At the time, Nigeria really was a byword for misrule, wasn't it?
It surely was. You know, you had a military regime which, you know, had ruled the country for quite a few years. A military regime which was, you know, which ruled by decree. You know, by almost like court martials. There was no respect for the rule of law. Things were just done arbitrarily. And to worsen the situation, the impression given was that obviously with a military regime you would get people who are meant to be more disciplined and so on. But it was also a time at which you even had corruption even at its very highest levels. So again, it was a case that, well, if this regime was a military regime was not necessarily bringing the so-called sanity in the system, then, you know, what was the point of having them in the first instance? So in whichever ways you looked at it, there was no reason to have a military regime in there.
So what do you think has been done? What has been achieved in the 10 years since then? And how far do you think Nigeria has cause to celebrate 10 years on?
Okay. I believe as a country, as a nation, as a people, we have a very good and great reason to celebrate 10 years of democracy in that country. Now, that is not to suggest that perhaps we've had a very perfect situation in there. No, far from it. But the reality is our democracy is growing. Sometimes I think people get, you know, they make the mistake of feeling that Nigeria needs to be at a place where other democracies, you know, where it took them almost 200 years to get to, or 400 years, or whatever it might be. I believe that now there's, you know, obviously the will of the people is heard better through its representatives in various arms of government. I believe that in terms of development in the nation, there's a lot of development that has happened in the nation over the last 10 years. We had a situation where a lot of our debts was cancelled. We have situations where investors were flocking into Nigeria and still are every day. And whichever way you want to look at it, even when you look at the global economic crisis in the world today, now I'm not suggesting that it's not affecting Nigeria, but what you need to appreciate is that Nigeria is a country which is what I'll call an emerging market. It has a lot of growth potentials, so there is still a way, or it's still a country and a very good investment destination.
But at the same time, there are lots of Africans, including Nigerians themselves, who say they would never make their home there. They would never invest there. They don't like the way in which the police behave, the way in which the army behave, the repression on some aspects of the media. They don't like the way in which the Electoral Commission has conducted itself, not just the most recent election that brought Umaru Yar'Adua to power, the current president, but previously President Obasanjo twice. And they say, actually, it's not a country that is really ready for business. And that's one reason why President Barack Obama, the first African-American to go and become president of the US, he's not stopping there. He's going to Ghana, and that's quite right, because Nigeria isn't ready for him yet.
Well, that's debatable, but I think the first thing that one must point out is that, number one, you don't change a system by running away from the system or by not being part of the system. I think it's a lot easier to be part of a system or be in the country or even remotely, because again, we're talking about a global world now, or a global village. But I think one needs to be part of a system to be able to change that system. Now, if you know, I think there's this popular saying that the only thing that is needed for evil to flourish is for good men to, you know, to stand back. Now, we all have a role to play in there, and I think it would be very wrong to actually run away from the system in order to change it. Now, I appreciate as well that there are some issues or problems in Nigeria, especially in terms of the areas of you know, security and the areas of electricity and so on and so forth. But there are people who are living there and who indeed are making an impact. They are somehow enjoying themselves, you know, and these are people who, for example, in fact, if you give them millions of pounds to come and live in the Western world, they're not even prepared to do that. I know, having lived in the UK and having lived in Nigeria for quite a bit of time, I strongly believe that Nigeria is a very good place to be in. There are advantages in living in both countries, but as a Nigerian from the heart, I believe that I really need to be in Nigeria. I would encourage people who think that Nigeria is a place they should never go to have a change of heart, and also try and see the role they could also play in terms of changing things back in Nigeria.
Femi Okotubo, a very, very passionate Nigerian there. Well, let's hear from you Nigerians. We've been showing you various different ways in which you can get in touch with us. You can call us, you can text us, you can email us, and we'll put you on there. Io Johnson then, from Sierra Leone, our Pan-Africanist man who has his eye on what Nigeria is doing and how other Africans see Nigeria. When Alice launched into her broadside against this rebranding exercise, you were itching to get in, and you've heard what Femi has to say there. What do you say now?
Well, it's quite interesting. I want to make a reference to the Special Rapporteur. Special Rapporteur is an individual, be it a man or a woman, who's commissioned by the United Nations to go into a country and check its health.
Yes.
To see how, literally, when they go on the ground, ministries panic, ministers, you know, worry. And the most recent of such reports, be it the 2006, 2007, 2008 reports, talk excessively about issues surrounding people being kidnapped, being arrested, being kept in prisons for a protracted period of time without any charges, issues around inequality, justice.
The kind of things that used to happen under the military, under which Nigeria has suffered for far too long. Independence 1960, and here we are now 2009, 1 year away from the 50th anniversary, and of that period a significant, far too long, has been spent under military rule. How much progress has been made from 1999 to 2009, and do other Africans look at Nigeria and say, yes, they're making progress 10 years on?
Well, no. No, for the simple reason that Nigeria, be it that because of their might, their numbers, 150-odd million, should have done far better.
Yes.
But in saying
look at that oil wealth.
Yes.
My
absolutely.
goodness.
But I'm not a fan of the oil wealth. I've always been on the understanding that with oil, you've got to have other resources that you've got to lean on. To be totally dependent, where you've got 99% of all your income coming from oil, being totally dependent on it is a worry, because you'll be hit when we've got fluctuations in the market, and when prices go down, and when in the case we've got in the Delta region at the moment, where 30% of the output of oil has been curtailed. Literally instantly. It hurts the government. But also, the rest of Africa looks at Nigeria and thinks, well, we thought you guys were a superpower. Clearly you're not. South Africa has taken that mantle. You are clearly a distant second. And maybe it may give Nigerians the appetite to do one better and hopefully supersede.
That and the fact that Obama has been to Cairo in Egypt and he's going to Ghana next month and he's bypassing Nigeria. I know some Nigerians are very, very hurt and feel insulted.
He's not going to Kenya.
Well, he's not going to Kenya, maybe
which
for
is his
similar reasons.
home route.
Yeah, but, you know, the most populous nation, you'd think you would go to this, you know, good people, great country.
There is a reason. There is a reason.
We'll come to that reason in just a moment or two, but I want to focus on what Aya was saying there, just looking at oil, looking at the kinds of things that dog Nigeria's reputation. Bad news abroad, unfortunately, much of it. Much of this is linked to corruption scams like the notorious 419 internet phishing expeditions, but others are, as I was saying, due to the oil industry, where there's been so much degradation of the environment, and of course the Shell case, which was finally concluded last week, as Claudia van der Puy reports.
It's the result family members never even imagined they could get. But today, Europe's largest oil firm, Shell, have agreed to a $15.5 million out-of-court settlement that ends a lawsuit against the company, claiming it was complicit in the executions of activists by Nigeria's former military regime. Activists that included Nigerian author Ben Saro-Wiwa. His son was one of the many relatives fighting for justice so that they could just move on from the pain surrounding their deaths.
It will provide some kind of psychological relief and release to have those who they feel were responsible for the violations of their human rights being held accountable or being made to account for their roles in those human rights violations.
I'm thrilled about the settlement. I mean, it's been 13 years, and the clients are being well compensated. We're very pleased with the settlement.
Though Shell acknowledged no wrongdoing in the 1995 hangings of the activists, it agreed to settle the lawsuit, they said, with the hope of aiding the process of reconciliation.
But I think the message from this lawsuit and the others like it is that corporations, like individuals, must abide by internationally recognized human rights standards, and that they, just because what they're doing is not in the public eye, just because the victims are often poor or in an inaccessible place, they will be held accountable.
Half of the settlement will now go towards investment in social programs in Nigeria, where it's hoped the true cost of oil can change to a positive one.
Claudia van der Puy on last week's historic out-of-court settlement by Shell to the families of those Ogoni leaders killed back in 1995 by the Nigerian regime. Well, let's talk to Ben Amunwa from the Remember Saro-Wiwa campaign. Ben, good evening to you.
Evening, Henry.
Can you tell us a bit more about how the $15.5 million are going to be used?
Well, my understanding is that it will be used to, first of all, compensate the plaintiffs in this case. That is, the 10 individuals who brought this legal case against Shell. It wasn't only the Wiwa family, it was also relatives of the other Ogoni 9. And also it will be used for a trust, which is called the Kisi Foundation. Kisi in Ogoni means progress, moving forward. And essentially that's what the trust is all about. It's about providing education and community development in Ogoni land. And the board of trustees of that foundation will be independent of both Shell and the plaintiffs, and will be aiming to improve living conditions for Ogoni people. So $5 million of the 15.5 will be going towards that.
Did the campaign feel, well, look, actually, we shouldn't accept this money, we should let things go to court, we shouldn't be bought off by these people?
There's two separate things, Henry. There's the plaintiffs in the case, and then there's campaigners like myself and my colleagues. And essentially, you know, this settlement was a decision that was in favor of the plaintiffs. It was good for them. They chose to accept it, totally independently of us, and after exhausting debate, I imagine.
But they've admitted no liability, whereas you guys have pointed the finger at them and said that they contributed to the circumstances surrounding the deaths of the Ogoni 9. They got off scot-free. OK, they spent $15 million, but actually they say, we were not responsible.
Well, I think if you look at the evidence, it's very clear, and we've been doing our best to publicize this evidence and put it out into the public realm, because although we haven't seen a trial before a jury, we are now seeing a trial in the public realm, which I think is as important. And let's remember that, you know, this case was only ever going to be a civil case where, if Shell was found liable, they would have to pay damages. So essentially, either way, if Shell were found guilty or if they settled, they were just going to have to buy their way out of this. And of course, you know, 15.5 million is only, you know, 4 hours profit for a company that makes so much money. Of course, it's a drop in the ocean, but, you know, we know that Shell are guilty and are implicated in human rights abuses in Nigeria, not only in the 1990s, but, you know, ongoing today.
But they still deny that. What about Nigeria, the country itself, which last month launched another rebranding exercise that we've been talking about today? What about the lessons for them from this case? How much progress has Nigeria made on the question of oil, the environment, and crucially, the treatment of minorities?
I think Nigeria still has a very long way to go, and I think it's all tied in with this whole question of the meaning of democracy and participation in Nigeria. And I think, you know, as we've recently seen, whatever rebranding exercise is going on, I don't really know, but what I do know is that the rerun elections in Ekiti, you know, clearly demonstrate that, you know, Nigerians are denied their vote all over the shop, really, and there's still a very long way to go, and there's very, you know, deep concerns about, for instance, the 2011 general elections. And I think that, you know, this applies to not only minorities, but also to all Nigerians. But in a place like the Niger Delta, you know, ordinary people are so disenfranchised that the only way that they can make their political voice heard by these big entities like the federal government and the oil companies is unfortunately through armed resistance. And some people have chosen to pursue that means. Other people, Sarah Wiwa and his followers and people who are still pursuing that cause, are choosing the non-violent path. But, you know, I certainly think Nigeria has yet to adequately resolve the crisis in the Niger Delta, and it's certainly not going to be resolved through military means alone. It's a political problem, it's an environmental problem, it's a fundamental denial of human rights on a systematic basis. Until these problems, the problems that Ken Saro-Wiwa fought and died to address, until these problems are properly and adequately addressed by the federal government and the oil companies, we're not going to see a lasting peace.
All right, Ben Amunwa from the Remember Saro-Wiwa campaign, thank you very much for joining us on Shoot the Messenger this evening. Alistair Soyedi, did you breathe a sigh of relief when that settlement was arrived at between Shell and those families of the Ogoni Nine? Did you say to yourself, actually, now we can get on with really rebranding Nigeria, because that boil, the whole Ogoni, Niger Delta, Saro-Wiwa execution, murder some call it, has now been lanced?
Well, I think they're two separate cases, to be honest. There's no need to link the two together.
Really?
Absolutely true, and excited that, yes, there has been a case, and the case kind of has been settled, and that money has been given to the organization, which hopefully will utilize it towards the people of that region.
Yep.
But the rebranding, for me, as Alison was mentioning before, I don't think is something that we would say people are sweeping something under the carpet.
What I was trying to say was, as long as that case was still live and still active, it's very difficult for you to rebrand the country, because the Shell case, the Ogoni case, the Saro-Wiwa case was famous around the world, and it was a cancer for Nigeria in a way.
It could be a cancer, but in true sense, still, the rebranding actually, for me, is part of getting the settlement, which means all the things that we're talking about, other corruption, power failure, electoral reform, is all for me part of what the rebranding is all about. Where we see there are weaknesses, we want now the Nigerian people to come forward and say, we need to rebrand this, we need to change the situation, we need to, our vote needs to be counted. Yes, we know there are problems.
Because it has to happen from the country, from within.
Yes, well, that is why actually as well the rebranding is taking place more in Nigeria than coming abroad. As you mentioned, maybe Max Clifford earlier, we're not looking at the international people to come in and rebrand Nigeria. We're saying, yes, we know there are a lot of weakness, there are a lot of problems, there's a lot of challenges in the country, and we want the Nigerian people to begin to say, no, what you're doing is not good, we need to rebrand it. Yes, there's no power here. We need the people and the organization and the ministry responsible for the power to come forward and begin to rebrand and create it and make it better. If there's we don't have good roads, we're calling the ministries that are responsible to come forward and rebrand the whole thing. Let Nigeria now come out.
Build the thing.
Deliver. Yes, that is basically what, for me, that is what the rebranding is all about. Let's come out from the negative into the positive. Let's begin to empower the Nigerian citizens.
Alice is still shaking her head.
This is about rebranding. Yes. We know the problems are there, and that is why we're saying, where even the present government is saying, we are putting things together. We're not giving amnesty to the Niger Delta militants because we want a solution. Rather, we're not constantly talking about the shop. We're basically asking people to come forward and contribute.
Alice is not buying it. Go on, Alice.
In actual fact, I think that to say that the Mr. President, to say they are giving amnesty to the youth is an insult on the people of the Niger Delta. Because what has happened in the Niger Delta is the fact that it's not just the youth that are on the ground saying, no, we don't want this anymore. It got to end. But the entire population of the Niger Deltans, the intelligent people of the Niger Deltans, are people that have been kind of slighted and kind of insulted by the way that the rest of the country, the federal government in particular, have treated the region. Let me tell you something. On this, it's one thing to say, well, the youth they just want to fight. On the 9th of...
How do we know the youth just want to fight?
No, I know that I work with the youth.
The youth are saying they want to fight?
No, the youth don't want to fight. What the youth are saying, you are saying that the youth are militant, that the youth are destroying things. The youth have asked Mr. President, what infrastructure did you put in place that we, the youth, destroyed? Show us the hospital that you put here that was destroyed. Show us the school that you put here that was destroyed by us. Show us the market that you built with toilets for the women that were destroyed. Tell us what you have put here that we destroyed. The youth are struggling and saying sorry. We cannot be the region that is producing this oil, and then we are the region that we don't. There is no environmental.
You see, that's why, Alison, I'm excited about the rebranding issue.
Yes.
Which means the youth now can come forward and say,
we
know what the problem is.
No, it's not to be. The point is, the youth actually promised. The youth promised, when it is as a result of the agitation, that the federal government decided to create the Niger Delta Ministry. Now the youth decided, look, we don't want this. For us to take it, we have the NDDC.
You know, I know members of the technical committee on Niger Delta, for example, Prince Will Tonye, who have actually resigned because he doesn't believe that what the federal government is doing is right.
It's right.
Right?
And
for me, that's still what I'm saying, that it's all part for me as a rebranding to challenge those who need to change.
No, the issue is this. They've sent you to come and rebrand. When you go to them, because they have appointed you to come and rebrand the thing, they will listen to you. But the truth is, the youth themselves, men themselves, wrote a letter to the federal government and said, the region is ours. We don't want, this is about for the region to do well. Now, we want you, that if you want to create the ministry, don't let it be business as usual. Don't take one of the...
Exactly, that's still for me, that rebranding. Don't let it be business as usual.
But it turned out to be business as usual, because the youth now nominated someone to be the person that they want. In actual fact, they nominated Alice Ukoko, that this is a woman we know. We know Alice Ukoko mean well, and we bring good things to the Niger Delta. I will show you the letter when we leave here. And also that if we can see the changes, in other words, the development of the region, we will undertake to remove arms from the region. There will be peace in the region. And when they said, we don't want you to... Who is the minister for the Niger Delta? Is a person who was the federal government appointee. And he has been there for 8 years. So what Yaradua did was do exactly what the youth said, don't do. So that was one end. Then once the minister was appointed, the youth said, no, this is not what we wanted. We said we want something different. But they have not listened.
Let's get the rebranding on that case.
This is incredibly important. It is incredible. But we do have people who do want to engage in our
yes,
discussion
they
now.
want.
But we do have people who do want to engage in our discussion now.
Want.
We do want to engage. We have Nigerians here in the UK and Nigerians abroad as well. Let's hear first of all from Abdul in London. Abdul, good evening.
Good evening.
What would you like to say?
Yeah, I would like to contribute. Firstly, to Madam Alice Ukoko. Yes. There's something she said. Are you listening to me? She's talking about men.
Yes.
See, when you are talking about the boys, men,
as a movement for the emancipation of the Nigerian.
Yes, I know. Men especially is not talking for the people. He's talking for himself.
How do you know? How do you know, Abdul? How do you know?
Listen, let me finish. Most of these boys have enough money that they've gotten from all these ill-forgotten in terms of their what do you call it, bunkering, and in terms of kidnapping. How many of it have they pumped into that same community? How many of them have built schools? How many of them have built hospitals?
It is not the responsibility of the youth
to madam, let
me
finish, Alice. Let me finish, Alice. Alice, the way you are talking, you don't believe in the country, and you are supposed to have been a governor of a state. You don't believe in that country. From your statement, I've been watching this. Fine. And I will go through...
I do not believe in a country who is summarily executing people. Even if the youth, if we have a problem, the government, we had the IRA for over 30 years. They were campaigning, and people sit down to talk. You don't believe in a country who will then send arms into a different side of the region to start killing people summarily. And the point is, they are also killing children, so that they don't grow up to become militants. We have seen soldiers killing, Nigerian soldiers don't go outside to fight. We saw the civil war, and many people died during the civil war.
Let's say from Abdul again.
So don't say, I don't believe in a country, a government who refused to govern.
Madam Ali.
Thank you.
Madam Ali.
Abdul,
yes,
please,
I'm
Let me
hearing you.
ask you one question.
Yes, ask.
This issue that we are talking about,
Yes.
did anybody bother to tell people like Tom Polo that, see, all these arms you are amassing, when you carry arms against the government, you are looking for trouble. Before I go forward, I want to tell you, United Nations Security Council Resolution 1566 defines terrorism as criminal acts, including against civilians, committed with the intent to cause death or serious bodily injury or taking of hostages, with the purpose to provoke a state of terror in the general public.
So are you saying,
So
Abdul...
what are you saying?
What? No, let me finish the definition for you. So you cannot say that when somebody is taking people hostages, you're a terrorist. A terrorist.
So...
Listen, that is why in that aspect, there are people that have a cause. Ken Saro-Wiwa had the cause. And
Who
some
kills,
of us,
who kills
listen,
Ken Saro-Wiwa?
listen, let me finish. Some of us as a student, and particularly, I was once vice president, National Association of Nigerian Students.
Abdul, make this very brief because we have to move to another caller.
I'm not trying to tell her we've had a struggle for this, but not to carry arms.
Okay.
That is that. Then the contribution of Nigeria to things, the UN Undersecretary for Peacekeeping went to Nigeria. They saw what Nigeria is doing in that region, which we all appreciate.
Okay, Abdul from London, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. A brief word, Ayo, you wanted to come in desperately, and then we'll go back to the phone calls because people are calling in.
I just want to touch on the rebranding thing, which is all about this.
Yes.
It's going to be so much more difficult for Nigeria to complete this rebranding exercise because it's now a battle of hearts and minds added to it. So I'm very concerned as to whether they've thought this out properly and the timing of it, whether it's suitable at this junction. On the issue of the Delta region, especially about the fact that there's some discrepancy between federal money and being used at a state level and who would be using that money. I think the Nigerian government has come up with this formula. The procurement bill, and that would allow them for proper regulations and checks to be ensured that there's checks and balances when this money is passed across.
Let's hope that happens. Let's go back to the phone lines. Nigerians calling in from all over the place, including in Paris, where we have Comfort on the line. Paris on the line, that's Comfort. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Ça va, ça va. Oh, well, as soon as I heard it was Paris, I wanted to speak French. Bonsoir, ça va to you. Oh. Okay, tell us. What do you want to say? Comfort?
Vous allez bien?
Okay, tout va bien, mais il faut continuer en anglais. We're speaking English right now, okay?
Okay, well,
very good.
Good evening, every one of you.
Good evening.
Yeah. I am very, very impressed about what the lady is saying. You know, I think the last man that spoke just now has just said nothing, you know.
And so what would you like to say further, Comfort?
Okay, I want to remind you that I graduated from one of the premier universities in Nigeria before coming down to Paris, you know. The problem in Nigeria actually drove a lot of us out of the country. You know, I am a graduate, and I believe that I can contribute better in my country than another country. But unfortunately, the quota system that is affecting those of us from Niger Delta area is one of the major things that destroys our political, socio-economic development.
Thank you.
If we're talking about democracy today, we have no democracy in Nigeria. Any country where there is democracy, they are supposed to move forward, but we are moving backward. It is very shameful today. If I go back to Nigeria, I look back at my university. My university is Ahmadu Bello University. You cannot even enter and ease yourself. Is that development?
Well, thank you very much.
Niger Delta area, they are blaming the youth. What have you for them? There is nothing for the youth in Niger Delta.
Nothing.
You want them to drink petrol as water? Or do you want them to cook with petrol as water? No. These people have nothing. We have nothing there. You cannot, the plants, are they going to plant their crops inside petrol?
Comfort, let me put that to the man who is part of the committee charged with rebranding Nigeria. Alistair, I mean, the Ogoni and Delta situation really is going to make it very, very, very difficult for you to change Nigeria's image, not just domestically, but to the outside world, isn't it?
Thank you very much. You used the word change. Rebranding means change. Yeah?
Yeah, we did change.
Sorry, 1 second, Comfort. Alistair is trying to address the point.
Indeed, with all this problem that has been identified, the situation needs to change, right? The University, Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, which is one of the premier northern university, as she said, is not a place for you to go into because it has run down. Now, this is the best time to change. Let's change it. And now, you ask the question, is it the best, is it the time, are we at the right time to do it? This is the time to change. The electoral system is not working. This is the time to change it.
But Henry, I think
very briefly, we're coming to the end of the program. Very briefly,
Henry, I think the Nigerian government needs to go down to the Delta region and sort this problem out, because it's a scar on the nation, it's a scar on the country, and other Africans are looking and thinking, well, what on earth are they doing?
Yes.
All right, no wonder Obama's not going there. That's what people are saying.
It's amazing. I mean, no, you can't solve the problem by going there to kill everybody.
When the time comes. But we need to change. And that's the word of the
Thank you very much. Comfort, we're going to have to finish now. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution from Paris. Sorry we had to cut it short, but we really are running over our time. So that's it from Shoot the Messenger for another week. My thanks to our studio guests, Alice Ukoko from Women of Africa, Ayo Johnson, the African Affairs Analyst, and Alistair Shoyede from Rebranding Nigeria. Now, if you missed any part of the program, please do catch up by going to our website, voxafrica.com, and click on Shoot the Messenger. Till next week, thanks very much.